ASA Northwest.
Thank you, Dave, and welcome everybody to Business Sale Essentials. As Dave noted, I have been a longtime member of ASA Northwest, and this presentation is about essential information that you want to have to make sure your business is going to survive beyond you. A perpetual business is, let me click to the next slide here. See if we get one slide at a time. That was good. A perpetual business is one that is always able to operate successfully independent of its current owner. I want you to take a writing instrument and a piece of paper, and I want you to answer two questions right now. The first one is, if you died today, who owns the business? That's likely going to be a spouse, or if you are not married, it's somebody else, but I want you to write down who owns the business if you personally were to die today. Then next to that or under, I want you to write down if you and your spouse met a tragic end today, husband and wife both die now, who owns the business? Just write it down. You're not going to share this with anybody. I'm forcing you to think about that and make a note so you know the reality of what happens to your company in the event of a tragedy. Then the third, who would operate the business and keep it running if all the owners, husband, wife, all of the owners died today? Who would operate it and keep it running? Save that information. You're going to need to deal with it starting after this presentation, because that will be the reality of the first step to making sure that your business becomes perpetual. Before I advance the slide, I'm going to reiterate this one more time. A perpetual business is always able to operate successfully, independent of its current owner. Now, more happily, that means you're going to retire one day and your business is going to continue beyond you. And it's critical. Owners don't really realize how much value is there and how many people depend on the business continuing. As an owner, the benefit to you of your business being perpetual is that you're going to get paid for your life's work. If that business continues after you, it means you're able to sell it. Then there's somebody behind you, your successor, that's younger, has that drive to be an owner, and wouldn't be able to realize the opportunity if they were not buying your business, because starting all over today is darn near impossible. So there's a tremendous value for the generation that follows you. And what about all of your employees, their families, their kids? They depend on your business. And Brenda, I'm just going to will you make sure that as anybody comes in, you just mute them all? I don't want to have to worry about that. Then all your customers, of course, rely on your business, and the communities are counting on you to provide that tax base to be of a contributor, both in appearance and services to the whole community. So owners typically just get so wrapped up in their business, they totally forget about the fact that they are going to leave one day. How are they going to do that? And who is depending upon them to make sure that that business lives? So at a minimum, going back to those first questions that I asked you, who would own it? Who will operate it? You must be able to answer those questions today just to deal with the tragedy risk that all of us face every day. And the answer to just those basics of who would own and operate That is called a succession continuity plan. All it deals with is tragedy, that there is a written plan that provides for the succession operators and owners of your company. We're going to talk about the happy side of this. Everybody lives and they're healthy and they get to sell their business one day. How are we going to do that, and what is it worth? So let's talk for a moment about business valuation. Business value is comprised of assets. Think working capital, inventory, and your fixed assets, everything inside the building, computer systems, lifts, tire balancers, all the stuff inside. Then the biggest component of a sale price is the goodwill value, or the blue sky. So the stuff is the least important. The goodwill value is the most important, and we're going to figure that right now. Goodwill, blue sky, is computed by taking your normalized cash flow of the company. And we're going to walk through what normalized means in a moment, but it is not just the net profit. There's more that goes into calculating the true seller discretionary earnings of the business. Then that is multiplied by a market multiple, or a premium, that's typically nationally in small businesses somewhere between 2 and 3 times the cash flow. But let's talk about how you normalize that cash flow first. You start with the net profit off of your operating statement, right off your P&L. That's the first number. Then you're going to add to that number interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. Why? Because when the future owner buys your business, they're not likely assuming any of your debt. They're going to be buying working capital, inventory, and fixed assets. Everything else you're keeping, including your own debt. So they're not going to have interest payments. If you're paying interest now and it's an expense to your profit and loss statement, that's going to go away. So the current interest expense is going to get added back to the net profit, so the new owner knows what they'd really be earning when you're gone. Depreciation is a tax entry. It's not a cash expense. That gets added back. Then we're going to also add back personal items. Often business owners will expense their car to the business because they're using the car at least a little bit for business. So let's have the business pay for that. Gas, insurance, maintenance, cell phones. Potentially you're part of a performance group, a bottom line group, 20 group of some kind, and you are traveling and paying for hotels and airfare. The new owner does not have to be a member of a bottom line or 20 group. Plus, maybe when you're going back and doing those trips, you're going to add a week's vacation while you're there, and you're going to expense the whole vacation to the business. Those kinds of things all get added back because the future owner is not obligated to have those expenses when they're running the business. Non-recurring, extraordinary items. You just have to use your imagination where you spent tens of thousands of dollars on something. Let me make that up for a minute. I mean, a real example. ATI is a wonderful coaching consulting organization, ATI. I know that they require a payment for most of their programs, $40,000, $50,000 you're committed to upfront for, say, 3 years of training. Well, that is a non-recurring, extraordinary item that would really make a big hit to your profit and loss statement and reduce it. But a future owner is not going to have that. So that gets added back. Then when you look at owner lease payments, if you own the property, the business is making rent payments to the owner. Are the rent payments at fair market lease rates today? Or has the owner chosen to pay more in lease payments to themselves than what somebody else would be leasing the property for? Or is it the other way around? The owner's not paying as much rent to themselves as what a new owner would be paying. So you're either adding or subtracting to the cash flow calculation depending on where your rent payments are relative to the fair market lease rate today. Same with owner's salary and benefits. Some owners don't take a salary. They just net it out at the end of the year and they take the profits and it's distributed that way. Other owners might be paying themselves $100,000 a year and they're absentee. They don't even work there, but they chose to pay a salary. So this item is going to be adjusted similar to the lease. Is the owner getting compensated correctly for their actual duties in the business that are required to be done by the owner? So we may be adding money back into this cash flow calculation, or if the owner's taking a very low salary and should be getting paid more, we're going to have to subtract from the calculation. But this is the first step in calculating goodwill value. What is the true seller's discretionary earnings that a future owner would realize when you're gone? And it's amazing how varied these numbers could be. Businesses can be operating at a loss. I could look at a P&L statement for a whole year, and let's say it shows a $20,000 loss. But in running through all these calculations, there could be $160,000 in true cash flow to the business. It's all dependent upon how the accounting was done and that we're properly recapturing those things that are not required of a future business owner. Okay, so now we've got normalized cash flow. We've got the first part. What is the market multiple that we're going to be asking and that a future buyer thinks is reasonable to get the cash flow? So the market multiple is that premium, the amount they're going to pay in above and beyond 1 year's worth of cash flow. And how we're going to figure that. What is that really? Well, the multiple I describe as the confidence factor. How confident is a future owner that the cash flow that we've computed is going to continue when the owner leaves? So we've got the cash flow. That's math. Right there on a spreadsheet, everybody can see it. That's easy. How do you measure confidence that a future buyer will have that that cash flow is going to be theirs in the future? That's going to be the next slide, but I'm going to share with you that the common multiple is anywhere from 0 to 5. 5 being I'm very confident, and 0, this company's really not worth anything. The owners leave and everything leaves with them. So let's get into real world. Everybody on this call is going to value 2 businesses in that market multiple. So you need something to write on. And we're going to go through this exercise together. This is real world. This is how I value businesses. I created this. I haven't seen it done anywhere else. Most valuation professionals take averages. Your business is not an average business. Well, I suppose it could be an average business, but I think each business should be valued on its own merits, not what the average of all independent auto repair shops in Lewis County are valued, or King County, or the state of Washington, or nationally. It could be worth much less than an average or much more. So I believe that businesses should be evaluated on their own merits, their own metrics, and you're going to get an example of 2 of those right now. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it together. There's 6 different items that we are going to evaluate, and this is how I do it. So this is real world stuff. There's 6 metrics. For each metric, you're going to write down a number from 0 to 5, 5 being highest. And remember, think of this as confidence. 5, I am supremely confident. I'm inspired. This is awesome. And 0, my God, this business is kind of in trouble. I don't have any confidence. Then you're going to total those 6 numbers. There's six metrics, 0 to 5. The maximum total you're going to get is 30. And then you're going to divide your total by 6. So I hope everybody gets that. We're going to walk through 2 different businesses. So business number 1, I've got to get rid of this screen here. Let's see if I can do that. There we go. Get rid of, I'm sorry, I'm not looking at any of you right now. I'm totally engrossed in my own slide. So business A, the first metric is their top line gross revenue trend. So when you look at 3 years of top line, it shows that the trend is a -5. So that means they're selling less each year for the last 5 years of about 5% a year. Write down a number 0 to 5. 0, I really don't like that. 3 might be, well, I can live with it, but it's not very good. 5 would be, that's really awesome. What a great job that business is doing. Okay, now you're going to do that for the next 5. Next one, note that it's profit margin, not profit percent. So if your normal gross profit margin, say, was 60% of sales, this business over the last 3 years has a declining margin, not much. Margin's not increasing though, but it's slightly declining. Write a number 0 to 5. Standard operating procedures, what I'm referring to here are the most important key standard operating procedures that a future owner would be able to look at, read, understand, and know how you were running your business the way you run it. An example of this that I think is most important and most applicable to our businesses is how you deal with customers. So a standard operating procedure for customer experience. How do you answer the phone? How do you greet them when they walk in the door? How do you make appointments? How do you dispatch the work? Or before that, how do you bid the work? How do you make the sale? What kind of point of sale system are you using? How do you use it? How does the work get dispatched? What do you do with the customer experience when the job is done? Quality control, you collect the money, you say goodbye to the customer, and you've done such a great job, you're going to keep that customer. If I'm buying your business and I haven't been working there in your business for years and learned it by osmosis, how would I know and be able to replicate what you are doing to attract and retain your customers? That's what I mean by a key standard operating procedure. So this business has no standard operating procedures whatsoever. Someone buying the business is going to walk in and they're going to have to figure it out themselves or talk to somebody and learn it, but there's no guide for them. Write a number 0 to 5. Now you'll note 3 of the 6 metrics I assign to people. People is what make the money. People run the business, not the stuff. Your lift will do nothing without people. Sales staff, these are going to be general manager, service advisors, going to be the people that are customer facing. The average in this business of the people that talk to the customers up front is 2 years. So whether there's 1 or 3 or 4, however many, the average of all the sales staff in working in this company is 2 years. Production staff, this is your technicians, the people who actually produce the service. These are your technicians. The average of all of the technicians of this business is 3 years. Write a number 0 to 5. The last one is the dependence this business has on the owner. This business is 100% dependent, which means this owner's likely working there 50 hours a week or more. They may be doing payroll, they might be doing some service writing, they may be doing dispatching, potentially diagnosing problem vehicles in the shop, being a shop manager, dealing with the bankers, the insurance agents. The business totally revolves around this owner. 0 to 5. And remember, what you're evaluating is the confidence that you have that this business is going to continue to operate as successfully today with you there as when you leave. Okay, you should be all done, have 6 numbers, total them up, divide that number by 6. Let's go to business B. Business B, the 3-year revenue trend is plus 3% a year for the last 3 years. The profit margin has been growing by 1% a year the last 3 years. And of the standard operating procedures that all of us would think would be reasonable to have, they have half of them. Probably the most important half is already done, and they're usable, they're practical. The sales staff has been there an average of 6 years. Production staff, 12 years average time in this company. And this owner is largely absentee, likely still coaching, dealing with some upper level management, strategy, dealing with bankers, CPAs, attorneys. But the business is pretty much running on its own, and the owner can be gone 70% of the time and everything's working just great. Add up the confidence numbers for this business, divide it by 6. Assuming that we have identified these 2 businesses and they each have $300,000 of true cash flow to the owners, we're going to take the cash flow times the market multiples that you just did. Now, this is real world stuff. I've done this in a room with over 500 business owners at a time. And the numbers come out darn close to my numbers. That doesn't mean mine are the right numbers. All your numbers will be a little different, but this is how a buyer is going to evaluate how much they're going to pay for their cash flow. They don't need to buy a lift or a used computer monitor. Get that on Craigslist. What they're buying is your cash flow. That's their return on the investment. They're not buying a job, they're buying an investment. So in business A, my results came up 6 out of 30. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 300,000 times 1 means the goodwill value would be $300,000. Business B, my metrics total 24, divided by 6 is 4, times 300,000 is $1.2 million. Now think about this just for a minute. Owners are buying the continuity of the cash flow. If the cash flow doesn't turn out under their ownership like it did under yours, they're in a world of hurt. They made a bad decision, bad investment, and they're likely going to go out of business. So the first one, there's virtually no confidence. The owner leaves, the customer relationships are leaving with the owner, the relationships with the employees are leaving with the owner, the procedures are leaving with the owner. There's nothing left except hope and prayer that these people who haven't been there very long and that the trends are declining, it's going to be tough. And that's why the multiple would be so low. The new owner is going to have to basically start over with just the stuff that's there and then hire some good people to build the business back up and make it work. Where in business B, that owner doesn't need to be there. I could literally, Bob Ward, buy this business B and never go there. It's running itself. It's perpetual. The staff has been there a long time. It's on an uptrend. There's procedures. So let's review what I just said in summary about how businesses get valued and what the real world is. You're going to include in the stuff some working capital for the future owner. You're actually going to be selling some cash in the business valuation. And that is because the business must have money to pay a month or month and a half worth of bills to stay in business. And whoever's buying it likely doesn't have the money to pay you for your business and have working capital. We'll find out in a moment how challenging the financing is, but figure that in the stuff you're selling, there will be cash. Generally, I recommend a month and a half of expenses. Inventory, provided it's current and returnable and not obsolete. And then the fixed assets, furniture, equipment, at fair market value, and just figure it's 25 cents on the dollar of whatever it was purchased for in the first place. The greatest portion is the goodwill value. So a typical shop that of the audience that I've seen online so far, the stuff part, working capital, inventory, and fixed assets would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000, $200,000. And the goodwill value of a business more like business B is going to be somewhere $500,000 to $1 million. So the goodwill is the value of the business. Otherwise, you're just liquidating it and it goes away and everybody loses their job and it's a disaster. Okay, so now you know how to value the business and you've actually done it yourself. If you were going to go buy business A or business B, you figured it out. Now, who's going to buy it? This is an even bigger challenge. It could be some consolidator, not too common in the mechanical world as it is in the auto body world, but it is possible. And the business valuation is going to be done similar to the way I did it. It won't be exact. I've never seen anybody do it this way, but they're going to be looking at the continuity of that cash flow, however they figure it out. It could be a competitor, someone down the street, a mile or two from you. The closer they are to where your current location is, the more likely they're going to want to do that because it's very easy for the customers to be consolidated. Well, I'm going to back up. It won't matter if they're buying a well-run business. If they're buying a business A, where it's not going to continue, the competitor would want it to be close because they're probably going to just shut your location down, take all the customers, would only have to drive an extra half mile, and they'll just have a bigger shop and won't deal with yours. If it's a great business like business B, it doesn't matter where it is. One could be in Washington, then one could be in Florida for that matter. If the business can run itself, any competitor would be happy to buy that kind of business. It just doesn't happen very often. You don't get consolidators buying mechanical shops, hardly ever. And competitors, most of them are struggling to run their own businesses and are not likely like a business B. So that doesn't happen very often. So now you've got an aspiring entrepreneur who's not working for you, but they've got drive, you know them, they know you, and they want to leap in and try and do this. That doesn't happen very often either. Now, why is this the odds so poor here? It's because the pool of potential buyers is so infinitesimally tiny, you hardly stand a chance. Now, I will have something more positive in a moment to say, but the reality, the buyer pool is darn near non-existent. And here's why that is. First, to have a buyer for the business, you first have to have somebody that wants to be a small business owner. Second, after you found someone who wants to be a small business owner, do they want to be a small business owner in your industry? Third, you get past those two, do they want to be a small business owner in your industry, in your community? Okay, you get past those three. Do they have any operational experience whatsoever? Any possibility of actually running the business, even though they want to? 5, you get past those 4. Do they have any money? This is the reality of the small business world. 80% of small businesses in all industries do not survive the departure of the current owner. 80% just close and are gone. It's because nobody planned ahead for the day when they wanted to leave their business. There aren't any buyers out there, and there wasn't they didn't use the time they had to plan to sell their business to the most likely candidate. Your buyer likely already works for you. Of all the work that I do helping small businesses transition, and no matter what the industry is, I do this all over the United States. I'm even doing it in Canada now. 90% of the buyers already are in the business. And why would that be? They know the business and understand it. They've worked alongside you. They'd likely have relationships with customers, with the employees in the community. They know how things are run. If you don't have somebody already working for you who has that desire, drive, passion, and commitment, go get one. You must have a buyer lined up if you are going to have this be successful. Let me give you a couple real life examples. This is Joe Sievert and Tyler Hubbard of I-70 Automotive in Kansas City, Missouri. Joe's been a BLIG member for many years past. He was Napa Technician of the Year a few years ago. Tyler had been working with Joe, by my recollection, somewhere around 8 years, service advisor. And Joe developed Tyler along the way and taught Tyler everything Joe knows through many, many, many years. And they arranged, and through my help, which I loved helping them attain this transition, where Joe just isn't there anymore. I mean, he comes in once in a while, but they're in a 7-year plan, and they're now like 5 years into it. Everything's working great. Tyler is buying Joe out over time for a mutually agreed value that I help them determine, and everybody is happy. All the employees kept their jobs and the customers are still going there. Joe was a 2nd generation owner. So now Tyler is the 3rd generation owner of that same business. As I said before, this is your prime goal. Have a business that is perpetual. If the business stays in place and makes money, so many people benefit through so many years. And wouldn't that just be the most proud thing that you could leave as your legacy, that you created a business that lived beyond you and somebody else could do what you do and realize their dream and provide for families? Now, let me go back to the other company. That's Matt and Andrea Mavert. They're in Steelville, Illinois. It's in southern Illinois. It's a bustling town of about 6,000 people. The neighboring community is about another 12. Matt is a second generation owner. You know, you can see that Matt's pretty young. He's in his early 40s. And he's so successful that this shop you're looking at, it's only 2 years old. He was able to build a brand new shop on the main highway in Steelville, just setting records year after year. But look at his staff. Just take a look for a moment. Matt and Andrea are there in the middle. To their right is Clint. Clint is a master ASE technician, started there when he was 18. He's now 28. Started at the zero ground level. Matt provided the opportunities, education, mentoring for him to become a master ASE technician. Next to Clint is Danielle. She's got that beautiful smile, nice hairdo. She's a sweetheart. She's 34 by my recollection, has been there 7 or 8 years. Service advisor. She wants to be there the rest of her life. She loves it there and loves the people. To Matt's left, immediate left, is John. Clint brought John into the business when he was 19. He's now 29. So 28 and 29. John is a master ASE technician. He started the same place Clint did, right at the bottom. But Matt has been developing his people, grooming them, not just to be great technicians and service advisors. Oh, and by the way, next to John is Heather. Heather in the glasses. She's another service advisor that was not there 5 years ago, but the business has grown so much that she's now the second service advisor 5 years, and she loves being there. So Matt, not only has he developed the technical talents of these people, but the people I've just named have all gone through Dale Carnegie training. They've gone through classes on how to evaluate financial statements. They understand productivity, efficiency, have worked on developing compensation plans, benefit packages. Those three have been named since 2012 as the successor owners in a succession continuity plan. The formal buy-sell agreement will be between Clint and John. That's not done yet, but in the event of Matt and Andrea's death, Clint, John, and Danielle will be the operators. They know they will be the operators. The family's attorneys, bankers know they will be the operators, and this business is going to survive beyond Matt and Andrea no matter what happens. Okay, your buyer likely works for you, and there may be more than one. And I've done a few of these where it's a technician and a service advisor, or another one happened to be 2 service advisors. It's probably 1/4 of the time is it 2 people. And they've all worked wonderfully. I actually kind of like that because there's 2 people fully committed to running the business and working together, supporting one another versus all the burden on a single person. Okay, so we're going to presume you've got a buyer or buyers. Now, how are they going to pay for it? That was one of the problems I mentioned before and why so many businesses just close. There's no money out there. The people who have money are us. We're over 50 or 60. We've saved money. We've paid off our homes, but those are not going to be your buyers. Your buyers are going to be like you were back when you started. And if you think about how much money you had when you started, it wasn't very much. I'm working with another client in Illinois right now. Two partners. It's Napier Auto Works in Naperville, Illinois. The owners are each 64. And one of the questions I asked them starting to work with them, how much money did you have when you started your business? They each had $3,000 and they borrowed 4 more, and they started their business with $10,000. Now, how many businesses like yours today could possibly be started with $10,000? How about 50? Maybe not even 100 or more. It's tough. So you have to realize this as we walk through this slide, the difficulty of the financing side. So there's only 4 ways that a business gets paid for. Miraculously, the buyer has the cash in the bank and they write you a check. Here's $1 million for your business. Thank you. No. The buyer can go get a bank, SBA loan. Well, SBA only means they allow the bank to lend a little more than the bank would otherwise want to, because the SBA will guarantee the first loss if there is one. So the bank still needs to underwrite the loan just like they normally do. They want collateral. If you're going to borrow $500,000, they want to have about $700,000 of collateral, meaning you've got equity in your home of $700,000, you've got retirement accounts of $700,000, you got assets of some kind. If something goes sideways, the bank's going to go take them all. The SBA, the bank may lend you, say, 70% against your assets, and with the SBA backing, they might lend 90% against the assets, but you still have to have the assets to borrow against. So your typical buyer, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, how many of those have unencumbered assets? Not many. So that's not likely to happen either. Well, then you get to seller financing. This is a kind of a sad thing, really, because I could be in a presentation talking to hundreds of business owners, talking about the future and selling their business, and say, well, I can sell my business anytime. Well, of course you can. If you're going to be the bank, you could sell it to anybody walking in off the street. Say, would you like to buy my business? Sure, I'd love to buy your business. Great. You just make payments to me for the next 20 years for $500,000 plus interest, and I'm out of here. And those are the ones you find out that the business failed and the owner's got to come back after a year and the place is gutted and it's a travesty. It's a disaster and everybody lost. I do not recommend seller financing unless it's somebody that is a very competent family member where you've got absolute trust in that person, or it's darn near a family relationship. And a good example of that would be Tom Smith and Candy Jennings. You know, Candy worked there, I'm going to guess and try to remember, it was somewhere like 16 years and was like Tom's daughter and knew the business inside and out, was very successful. And there's virtually no risk for Tom to help Candy finance that business. Virtually no risk, but that is rare. Don't go there unless you have massive amounts of down payment, and you just aren't going to get it. People don't have massive money. And unfortunately, our country does a very poor job of saving money, and our government is a very poor example. They don't save anyway. All they do is create more debt, and that's no way to operate a business. But let's not get into politics. Let's go to what really works. I created equity, equivalence, accumulation. It's like equity. You're gaining a partner in practice, not in fact yet. It's like they're your partner experience, but you haven't actually sold the business yet. The way this works is your buyer is assuming greater responsibility, authority, and operational control over time. The seller is getting out as fast as the seller can comfortably leave the business because the buyer is doing a great job. We want the seller to have that confidence that they can leave and everything's going to be great. It could be now, because you've worked with your buyer for so many years and you actually have built it to be able to leave anytime you chose, or you're going to have to spend another year or two grooming and educating your buyer. But the concept is the buyer's taking control, the seller's backing away, and the buyer is earning credits for this extra authority and operational control that go towards the purchase price. Those credits create this equity equivalence. So think of, you're going to bonus your buyer. I'm just going to make up a number for illustration. You're going to bonus your buyer $25,000 this year for doing a great job running your business, and you don't have to spend much time there. Instead of paying the buyer $25,000 in cash, the buyer paying taxes, the buyer writing you a check, buying some stock, we're going to effectively let those credits buy the equivalent of $25,000 worth of stock. And then in the next year, they'll get the credits from management, and then they'll get additional credits by their ownership equivalence, which buys more equity equivalence in the company. All we're doing is taking the cash and tax transfers out of that. You're not actually selling the company yet. The buyer is in effect buying down the purchase price. So let me try to explain that just a little more. We don't have time to do a whole spreadsheet or anything, but picture each year your buyer earns a management bonus based on the cash flow. That buys equivalent shares in your business, which give them access to their share of the cash flow each year in proportion to their ownership experience. So at the end of, say, 7 years, what you agreed to of $1 million, 7 years from now, you actually sell the business and transfer the assets. But the cash price 7 years from now is $500,000. You got 7 years of whatever you're getting now, and the buyer, by operating your business and you not needing to be there, now is able to buy the business for half. They earned their down payment, so to speak. So not only did you get more than $1 million because you got 7 years of whatever your cash flow was. Let's say the cash flow was the same $300,000. You got 2.1 million over 7 years, and then you get 500,000 at the end, versus I just give you $1 million cash today and you walk away. That would be one way. Here's $1 million up front, or over 7 years, grooming my buyer, I end up with $2.6 million. I hope that concept is at least clear. To actually see it in a spreadsheet makes it crystal clear, but if you can at least get the concept taken from this, we've made a lot of progress. Planning makes all the difference. When you plan ahead and you know who your buyers are, and you can help educate, season, develop, and work through the nuances of how financing over time can work, everybody wins. This is a great example. This was in West Seattle. This sale happened, I think it's 5 years ago now. Everybody won. They're happy, the future buyers are happy, employees, customers, and the community. Think about how you got where you are today, and how the same path can work for your future buyer, who likely already works for you. The path to where you are today likely looked like this. I know it did for me. Had a lot of passion for life, for success, lots of drive. You can't make that, by the way. A person either has passion and drive and commitment and perseverance, or they don't. But the audience has passion and continues today, and that's why you're successful. But that was the starting point. I've got drive. Now I've also got a skill. Maybe I was a chef. Maybe I was a typesetter. Maybe I was an automotive technician. I had a skill, got drive and a skill. But I got a dream now to pull those things together and create my own business. I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to build something that I own. It's mine. But I don't have any money. I'm going to figure out how to get that. I've known owners who borrowed money on 5 different credit cards. I know some who borrowed from their parents. Some went to the bank. Some had borrowed from family. But likely none of you started with very much money. And you certainly didn't have business education to start. You'd never run a business before. You've never operated a business before, but somehow you survived all of that. And you know the death rate of new businesses. It's like in the first 5 years, half of all startups are going to be gone. But you survived and you matured and you became seasoned. And then you've built something of great value. Likely it's been there if you're a first generation owner. It's been there at least 20 years, most likely 40. If that business is a second generation, that business has been there 70 years or more. You survived all of this and made it work. Your starting point, though, was passion. Somebody who works for you likely has that, and you already know it, and you've been able to take advantage of their passion to help you be more successful. Now it's your turn to help them continue what you have built. I'm going to wrap this up, and then we'll have a little time for questions. I'm going to wrap this up with some compelling inspiration. At least I hope it's compelling. When you think about your people, they're the ones that make your business what it is. Know this from Harvey Firestone. It is the growth and development of people that is the highest calling of leadership. And it's only as we develop others that we permanently succeed. We have a process. If you want to discuss this further at a later date, we take this from an introductory conversation all the way to concluding the transaction. The first step is the foundation step. Who's the business? Who are the people? Who's the buyer? What do they have? What do they don't have? Education, background, financials. What's the foundation for a possible process? Do the business valuation next. If we get past that, we figure out the financing. Everybody agrees there. We work out all the legal details, and then it gets turned over to an attorney to formalize what we've already agreed. So here we go. Wrap up. You've built a business, tremendous value. It deserves to continue beyond you, and you get paid for your life's work. Without a plan, everything and everyone is at risk. Going back to those first questions, if you died today, who's going to own it? Who's going to operate it? And then succession is not an event, it's a process. The average time from this moment to concluding average is a year. The longest was 2.5 years. They were very slow. The fastest was 10 months. But here's the best news of all. There's always a place to start. And I hope that you found this time inspirational, motivational, and that it lit a spark. If you want more information, go to my website, perpetualbusiness.co. Give me a call, shoot me an email. And if you forget all of this, just call Brenda. So I am done. Thank you for listening. I hope that you gained a massive amount of actionable information, and I'm available as long as somebody wants to continue chatting or asking questions.
If you have any questions, please just unmute yourself and ask.
Quiet group.
I don't have a question, but I heartily agree with everything Bob has been sharing here. I think it's very worthwhile information. I appreciate Bob as a consultant and business that we have done some transactions with in the past, and also look forward to using him in the future.
Thank you, Leon. That's very, very kind of you. Leon is one of those business B operators that commands a very high multiple. I know of several businesses that Leon has been associated with, and they are all premier. So thank you for your comments, Leon.
Good information, Bob. Thanks, buddy.
Yep, appreciate it. So I will stay and answer any further questions, but we need to have a question, or else I'm going to presume that you are all just totally satisfied and you're starting work on your succession plan now. I got a few comments here, chat comments. Thank you for your compliments for those who sent them to me. Anything else that I can answer for the audience today?
How do we get the ball rolling and figure out what we have?
Nice to see you again. When, where are you in your succession plan?
Well, nowhere at the moment except in my
Okay.
mind.
Okay. Did you have a comfortable answer for if tragedy struck that your business was going to continue without you?
Oh, no.
And that's common. So I don't take it personally. If you were to ask 100 business owners, no matter what the industry is, 100, the odds are you would be lucky to get one that would say, yep, if death were to strike me down, everything would be fine with my business. You'd be lucky to get 1 in 100.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a place to start.
I wish I had insurance on my partner before he died.
Did that really happen?
Oh, yeah. Yes, he did. Yeah, he had a massive heart attack.
Well, it's a good thing you were there as a partner, because if you both went, yeah, be tough.
Do you do like cursory inspections, or, you know, like complimentary type, like just kind of to explore and start the process? Or
Absolutely, Pete. The very first step is we just have a conversation. This class hopefully got everybody thinking about what truly is at risk and what the value you want to realize will be. So the first step, if you got that spark, is we just talk. It generally lasts 30 to 60 minutes, closer to 60, where I share a little bit more about what I do and how I do it and who you are and about your business and what you're thinking. And do you have one or more people that possibly are those candidates that have the drive? And Pete, because I know you, we're friends, and you know everybody on this call anyway. If I remember right, your business is first generation. You started it, is that right?
yes.
And how much money did you have when you started the business of your own money?
0.
There you go. Okay. So your challenge, unless you are just super lucky and find somebody with $1 million in their checkbook, your challenge is to identify, in fact, this is a challenge to everybody, is identify people who already work for you that have drive and desire. Don't go further than that. In fact, let me give you a talking point. This is super easy to have this conversation with everybody that works for you and everybody that you may want to hire one day. Everybody, no exceptions. The conversation is this simple. Pete, I want you to know that I'm always working on the plans for the future of this company, that this company is going to survive forever. And as I'm working on those perpetuation plans, and you can paraphrase this, I'm working on my plans for the future. You are an important part of my planning process. I'd like to know what's most important to you and your career future. Let me say it again in the smallest number of words. I'm planning for the future. You're important to my planning. tell me what's important to you in your career. You always want to know the answer to that. No matter what the answer is, you want to know what's important to your employees. Ideally, they're going to say something like, I want to have provide secure income for my wife and kids. I want to continue working here. It's a great place to work. And Pete, if you don't mind me saying so, I'd really like to be a business owner one day. Wouldn't you like to know that?
Absolutely.
Okay, now let's take the opposite side of that. They just say, you know, I really don't know what I want to do with my life. I'm you know, happy here, but I think I just want to be a service advisor and, you know, just be comfortable. Well, that's okay too. You still want to know the answer. Now, if in the conversation with either a new hire candidate or somebody who already works for you, it does not naturally come out where they say, I've really thought about owning my own business, or I'd like to own your business one day. If it doesn't come out naturally, that would be the only follow-up question in that conversation, because you're not talking anything else in these conversations. It's just what's important to you and your family and your career. So if it doesn't come out, the follow-up would be, have you ever considered being a business owner yourself? And the answer might be, oh no, I just don't have the temperament for that. I don't have the discipline. Or it might be, yeah, I'd really like to be a business owner, but I don't know how I'd overcome the no money problem. I don't have any money, but I'd sure like to own my own business. That's the whole conversation. You stop and you just say, thank you. That's really good information. We'll be talking more later. And then you go back, and at night when you're sitting there having your beer and you're contemplating these conversations, and you had a couple of people say, yeah, I'd like to own my own business, or I'd like to own yours. Then you start thinking a little further. Do they really have drive? Do they have the commitment? Have they shown me that they're able to learn things on their own and take initiative? Is there the possibility that they could be like Pete Bristow was at that age? Solving for the valuation and the financing and putting it together, that's the easiest part. Truly, it's easy. The hard part is who is going to buy the business. Now, if you want great examples, I'm going to give you a couple names. You could call them if you want. So you got Joe Sievert of I-70 Automotive in Kansas City. You could always talk to Todd Ainsworth about how he worked with the Winters. He's the buyer. You could go to Prescott Import in Prescott, Arizona, and talk to Steve LaFleur, the owner, who is selling his business to a technician, Scott Golden, and the service advisor, Dave Mendez. Those two between them have worked for Steve for 22 years between them, and neither wanted to buy it on their own. They wanted to buy the business, but they didn't want to do it by themselves. They're buying it together. In fact, they were on Carm Capriato's show with me about 8 weeks ago. So if you go back through Carm's Town Hall Academy, Steve and Dave were the guests. But there's an example of two buyers buying a business. So there's lots of great examples out there, and none of these that I've shared with you so far, with the exception of Todd. Todd just has a lot of money out there. I hope you're smiling, Todd. None of those other people had money. We're talking about, less than $20,000, but they have the ability to do it, the perseverance and the temperament. So this is your challenge. Maybe said another way, you're going to grow your own buyers.
Right.
This making sense, Pete?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So the starting point, there's some resources on my website. One of them is a really good 30-minute video that you can buy for $79. You watch it as many times as you want, share it with your people. As long as it's in your organization, you can share it with anybody. That talks a lot about what this session was about and how the equity accumulation process actually works. It's a great first step if you want something you can watch over and over and share with people potentially in your company. But otherwise, Pete, you just give me a call and we'll talk. That's the first step.
All right, Bob. I appreciate that, buddy.
You bet. In fact, you're probably getting close to retirement age now, aren't you? Near
You got
70.
that right. Oh yeah.
Aren't you near 75 now, Pete?
76. I just acted 21.
There you go. Okay, any other comments or questions from anybody while you got me captive here? Okay,
Good.
I hear none. Brenda, do you think we should call it a day?
Yes, thank you very much, Bob. It was a great presentation.
Thanks, Bob. It was awesome.
My pleasure. It's always a delight to share useful information for hardworking people like everybody in this audience. It's all of you that have created businesses, and you deserve to have a legacy that you can be proud of. So best wishes, and we'll see each other in due time. We're all living here in Washington. May your businesses be perpetual.
Thank you, Bob.
Bye, everybody.
Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.